I'm going to kick it over to you to like use the platform to introduce yourself to the audience and then talk about what kind of roles you're looking for, PM, where, what kind of industries, etc. Um, and then after that, we'll start the actual practice session.
All right.
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Well, we are live. Welcome everybody to mock interview and feedback number 83. We've been doing this since the beginning of the pandemic. I hope you are safe and probably dry out there as well and not stuck in traffic as San Francisco is busy with APEC this week. So if you're joining us for the very first time, if you've been back here before, let's explain how this works. So we are proud to have Corey Hiramoto back of careershakers.com. He is a career coach and has been doing this for quite a while, and also a Fortune 5 recruiter. This mock interview we've been doing since the beginning of the pandemic, and the way it works is that Corey will ask questions. Our interviewer, our mock interviewee, who is also named Corey, but with an EY here as a product manager, will answer those questions, and Corey, the interviewer, will provide feedback. For those of you in the audience, you can provide your own comments and provide feedback as well. And without further ado, Corey, I'll hand it over to you. Corey with a Y.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is, become a weekly occurrence now, and we are looking for volunteers in the future. So please reach out to me or Albert if you would like to put yourself in the hot seat and volunteer and get ready for any upcoming interviews. And if you want more interviewing tips and tricks, I've got my Career Shakers YouTube channel, and we've got the Albert's List YouTube channel as well, which has all of the other recordings for previous jobs that we've done. And I'll put those in the Zoom chat so you guys can check those out as well. But before we dive in, I want to pass things over to Corey with an EY to give a quick introduction of himself, talk about what kind of roles he's looking for, where, and if anyone in the audience is impressed by his background or has any leads for him for potential jobs, please reach out. So Corey, go ahead.
Thank you, Corey. My name is Corey. I've been in early stage startups for about 9 years now. Most recently as the co-founder of Reciprocity. It would match asks and offers for help within professional communities, not unlike the communities that my co-panelists here run. Long story short, it was more of a vitamin than a painkiller. We wound that down, and here I am looking for a product manager job or a product marketing manager job, given that I have a longer history in marketing than I do in product, but I did spend the last 4 years building the Reciprocity product. So excited to see if I can cut it in the real world.
And where are you looking for jobs? Fully remote, LA, Bay Area? What's your ideal job situation and target?
Yeah, my ideal role is remote. I'm based in San Francisco, so I am open to that, but ideally it's remote. SaaS, AI industries are of most interest, but I'm not too picky there.
Cool. So if we have any leads for Corey, please do reach out. And today we're going to be practicing a product manager role for Tixer, which is a cool startup that is involved with events and ticketing. And they're looking for a product manager. There's no job, there's no URL posting for it. There's only a copy and pasted one that we have. So it's hard to share with everybody, but we'll be basically doing a product manager interview today. All right, Corey, ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Corey, why don't you tell me about your product management experience?
Sure. So I've been interested in product throughout my career. In my first job at Mailtime in 2015, I helped them redo their product onboarding to double the amount of users that finished onboarding. So even though I was in a marketing role then, I've always liked having my fingers in the product. That's continued with my 4 years at Invisible Technologies, where I was also early on and helped abstract we had a human in the loop AI assistant product, and I was making sure that the humans that were in that loop were fully prepared to be as helpful as possible to the clients using the software that we had to do that. And then most recently at Reciprocity, the company I co-founded, I built the entire Slack product, leading a team of 5 cross-functional engineers, and learned a lot through hundreds of customer development interviews and basically how to get useful things out of people when they're lying to you, as the Mom Test book recommends, which is a book that I highly recommend.
Okay. And then which product features are you most proud of?
Yeah, I gotta say, Reciprocity is a product I'm most proud of because it's the closest to my heart. In terms of the specific features, yeah, so we had this Slack app that would walk you through asking for help with your community, and I think we've all seen people doing that poorly, right? Maybe in Albert's group or maybe somewhere else, where they say, "I need help with X," and don't give you much more information. So after a lot of customer development and feedback, we made this very specific Slack modal 5-step process that would let you ask for help in a way that made it as contextual as possible. So, we didn't give them one text box. We gave them 5 different text boxes. What you had given us in the previous text boxes informed what we would offer for you in the later text boxes, and all of that was within fields that we had determined were the most high context for someone asking for help, right? Whether that was introduction or an advice or resources, those had branching paths based off of what we needed from them.
And so why are you choosing to leave your startup?
Yeah, so we actually closed the startup in March. So I just started looking for a job in September. I spent the last 6 months kind of regrounding myself after losing my startup baby. Um, I'm happy to go into why we decided to shut it down. I think the long story short is we weren't seeing the kind of traction that we wanted to see, and the team was a little burnt out from 4 years of sprinting, right? So, you could always pivot again, but we didn't have that in us. And fundamentally, we realized what we were offering wasn't what the market wanted.
Okay, great. So first summary was awesome. I like how you tried to explain how all your roles have been relevant and touched product because I took a look at your resume, right? And it doesn't immediately scream product management. So I think it's really good that you were able to connect those dots for the interviewer to make them understand that you actually do have that background, right? And then when you're talking about your most recent role, it's great that you talked about how you built the whole product itself. You managed team of engineers, start to finish. You already had some key features that you had in mind about how you wanted to walk through them. Maybe talk a little bit about like some of the customer research or competitive research that you use to kind of lead to those features. But overall, the answer was great. The only thing I would potentially recommend is when you're talking about why you are leaving your startup, which of course is going to be a very common question, which again, there's like nothing wrong with it. It happens all the time, right? But I think the piece that you need to add to it is what you've learned and how that could potentially help your next employer, right? So in addition to why you are closing it up, why you guys are moving on, you answered that very well, by the way. But also give me some context as to like, okay, what did you learn from this? And then how is that going to help me by hiring you, right? Because ideally, the whole thing is I'm hiring you because you've made some mistakes, hopefully, that my company will not now make because I'm hiring a very experienced PM, right?
Absolutely. Albert had a question here in the chat. Should I answer that?
Yeah, why don't we go into Albert's next one, and I'll read it for everyone who's just listening along. Corey, would you be able to explain specifically how you came to a decision to end things versus pivot? And how often is that happening when you're building something?
Great question. So I think I gotta rewind a little bit to talk about the journey we had at Reciprocity. So my co-founder and I started, um, basically he spun it out of his Stanford MBA class. He was the communications chair there and was manually matching all the asks and offers himself and wondering why there wasn't software for this. So we had a web app. The MVP of Reciprocity was a web app that we sold to the MBA class and got a lot of good feedback. From that, we realized that a web app wasn't the way to go. Through a lot of customer interviews that I had with professional community administrators, they didn't want to get a new app, make their community go on a new app, right? Like for Albert's group, it'd be hard to get them off of Facebook, right? They're already on Facebook, come hell or high water. And so we decided to build a Slack app, which was kind of a pivot already from a web app, but not too big, right? I mean, it's just a UI, famous last words. That's a whole journey. But so we made a Slack app, spent a year building heads down on it, and then launched that. We realized that when we were selling to the customers who were buying a Slack app, it was very different than the sort educational institutions and larger groups that were buying a web app that were similar to the MBA, the graduate school customer. So that was definitely a learning, a mistake, if you will, about making sure that I know who I'm building for, right? Even something as small as a transition from a web app to a Slack app really changes who the stakeholders are that I'm building that product for. And so we realized and noticed when we had the Slack app that the needs of these customers were actually pretty distinct from the needs of the graduate schools that we had been serving before. And so, we hacked. I wouldn't call those pivots. I think the only pivot that Reciprocity had would be from the web app to the Slack app. Once we learned what the Slack app users needed, there were lots of little feature tweaks and stuff. But fundamentally, we realized, I've said this before in this interview, but it's a VC term, vitamins versus painkillers, right? Painkillers you take when you're in pain and you really want them, whereas a vitamin is like kind of just nice to have. And I think what the market was telling us through all these conversations that I personally was having with the customers was that this was a vitamin, right? They had existing Slack channels for asks and offers. The fact that ours did proactive matching between members was not enough of a value add for them. They were fine using a professional community organizer to do this manually rather than pay us. These were the kinds of things we saw. So tying that together, I think moving from a web app to a Slack app was a pivot that made sense at the time because we were meeting our customers where they were. It had knock-on effects, of course, but I think it was a smart pivot. Whereas if we were to pivot away from the actual ask offer matching product, which was something that we had evaluated, right? I mean, there's directory products in there, there's donut style matching randomly products in there, and there's always the ever-present enterprise sales things that you could do with this. We weren't excited to build those things, whereas we were excited to build something that brought the community together, regardless of the platform. So yeah, we decided to end it because we weren't excited about what we would have built other than that. Whereas when we pivoted, we thought that we were running towards how we could provide value to the market.
And how do you think we would avoid these types of mistakes at Tixer or Flixer, whatever company this is called?
Tixer, Flixer, yeah.
Tixer.
Yeah, so it's customer development, and I think what I learned here was you got to talk to people that are actually the folks that you're selling. We had thought that it was the same when we moved from graduate schools to professional Slack groups, and it clearly was not. And so the Mom Test, I forget who wrote it, but it's a great book, and it talks about how to do customer development interviews. And I think how I would do differently is just exactly by the book, use those questions with actual people who are in the customers that we're selling to. So at Tixer, it might be event producers or event attendees. Actually talk to those people, see if their credit cards are out for the thing. Yeah, don't ask people if they would buy it. Ask them if they're ready to buy it right now, and you'll learn if it's valuable for them.
Okay. This one's tricky because I know you answered it truthfully, but I think in the context of an interview, I don't know how it would land. Because the tricky part is your takeaway or the lesson learned is that you should talk to the customers who are going to be buying this, right? Seems like the natural thing to do, though, right? Is to talk to the customers that would have been buying this from you. So I know it's the truth as to maybe like why it didn't work out as well as we thought it would. but I think it's hard to flip that into something that could be beneficial for me as an employer, right? Like, for example, what if I've already talked to my target demographic customers to get the research, right? To understand what features, what product would be helpful, what's their ideal price point, etc. Now, if I did that, then why do I need to hire Corey? You know
I
what I
see.
mean?
Yeah, so it's an elementary enough question that they probably already did it, and if they've already did it, then they have no need for me.
Right. Because then it's like, okay, well, then what's your value add as my PM? Like, what's the mistake you've learned that is so valuable, right? That you've gained through your experience, which maybe no one else has gone because they're in a more traditional PM role for a large corporation. Like, what makes Corey's experience unique and different?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, and it brings to mind another
So
term that
maybe it's
I've.
not so much of the I didn't talk to the direct customer itself. Maybe it's more about like you can pivot it to say something around like finding the appropriate delivery or pricing model for my target customers ended up being a lot trickier to discover. Um, I've learned now how to ask very good discovery questions. Instead of asking this, I should be asking, X, Y, and Z. Kind of like dance around that core thing, right? But it still makes your skill set unique and valuable.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that, and it makes sense. Maybe go into the specifics about mom test tactics rather than just mention the book.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the question, Albert. And if anyone in the audience does have questions for me or Corey or double Corey, put it in there. Let us know. Okay, next one. Tell me about a key product or product feature that you came up with, and what was the impact, and how would you measure it?
Okay. So a key product feature that I came up with was surfacing, again, at Reciprocity. That's where most of my product background is. Um, Surfacing questions that had already been asked. So when you filled in, speaking of those multiple modals for the Slack thing, if the question was similar to existing questions, it said, "Are you sure you're not re-asking this question?" And you might have seen this on customer development or customer service apps, right? If you're trying to ask a question of an app's customer service portal, it'll do everything it can to not make you post a new question, right? Um, so uh, the question was, how did I measure impact? Yeah.
Yep.
So we measured it by number of questions that were similar. We had an AI model that had a percent overlap thing, and so the number of questions that were over, I think it was 60% interval or something, right, was counted as basically the same question, and so the number of matches between two different questions that had 60% sentiment overlap is how we would measure it. And I don't remember the number that it was decreased because we shipped it pretty early, but I'm I'm sure it was high. I mean, that's a bad thing to say. Um, should I make up a number if I don't have the number handy? What do you think? We'll say cut, redundant questions in half, let's say.
Okay, and then can you walk me through the engineering behind that feature and how you were able to get it done with what's the word um, effectively and tested?
Sure. So the way it worked is the product already had modals within Slack, and it would ship the data to the server within each modal. And that was how we were able to have these branching questions for the different asks that were made, as I mentioned earlier. And so for this one, when you input I believe it was the second modal, the actual text of your ask, that would already go to the server to be parsed and see if it matched with other asks and offers and bios, because that was the value that we were offering, right? And so when it was being matched against all the other asks and offers and bios, before it was actually given matches to the user, this, like, are you sure it's not one of these questions that's already been asked, was prompted within the post ask flow. So it was a nice little way to use something that we had already built, right? The matching engine, which was a word vector NLP matching engine, if you're familiar with AI. And we reused that for this same feature of making sure you're not posting the same thing twice. So the engineering lift was not too high, if I recall, given that it was already using the same server data. And then your question was, how did I ensure it worked? Testing. Yeah, we had I don't want to call it beta group. We had a group of friends of the company that were willing to test with us, and they were in a fake community that we had, and we had them use it and give us feedback. I would say that's another thing that we learned through this, was having friends give you feedback is not the same as having strangers give you feedback. That's kind of the whole premise of the mom book, right? Your mom loves you. She's going to give you loving feedback rather than the actual helpful stuff. So I don't know that this particular feature was off the mark as a result of that, but I guess I'm kind of rambling here. We tested using a community of our friends who were giving us feedback, and now looking back, I realized that biased some of the feedback. I think in this case, it was still the right feature to ship.
Okay, cool. So this question is a blend of like the technical as well as core, I would say, like PM skill set, right? And for a lot of the tech companies, a lot of the PMs have engineering backgrounds. Typically, most of them started off as engineers, and that allows them to actually have these types of technical conversations with the engineers that they need to work with, etc. So that's kind of why I wanted to probe on the more technical aspect of it. And you did talk about the NLP, the natural language processing model that you had built. I would like, if you have the expertise and domain knowledge around it, the deeper you can go into how you actually built the original one, is very helpful to kind of give them that confidence that you actually have that engineering bend to your background, so that if they were to hire you, you can talk to others engineers with that type of capacity. So trying to dive in there whenever you can would be great. And then talking about like the key KPIs or metrics that you would use to actually measure and test success before launch, right? So typically you'd go through the whole standard like agile, you break down your feature into different sprints, you'd run your beta group through, different versions of it, as well as like different UX probably, right? And then you'd want some type of like key metric or indicator to indicate that my software is running correctly, and also that the customer feedback, is at whatever satisfaction level in which you would feel comfortable going live. So try to use as much data as you can as well. It's fine to mention that you use your friends and your lessons learned from it, but also trying to include some type of like metrics or KPIs is going to be helpful. Because when you're moving into that more corporate environment, that's what they're going to be looking at, right? They're going to be like, Corey, are we ready to go? And you'd be like, yeah. Well, okay, how do we know that we're ready to go live? Oh, well, I asked John and Sally, and John and Sally said it works, right? Like, that's not going to work, right? It's going to be like, yeah, we had, 500 users go into a test environment. Over 65% of them, reported back no bugs. All P0 bugs we handled, and we ran with the second test group, right? There's no downtime or lag between servers, blah 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 blah, right? Like that's what you would do in like the more traditional corporate environment to like convince somebody that your feature is ready to go. And then also make sure you're able to talk about like the key benefits of it, not just like the benefit of the feature itself, but like how that led and impacted your potential customer base for you in your case, right? Like how that maybe had benefited like your potential sales or marketing at the time, right? You could say like, because my original question was, tell me about a key feature that you came up with. So key could mean anything, right? And it's your job to define that to me as the candidate as to what is key for you, and then why that was so beneficial / impactful for your company, right? So it could be key because, this was the one feature that everybody had wanted, and, your biggest customer wasn't going to buy unless this type of matching thing was created, right? And that's why it was so key. And then it led me to landing X, Y, and Z. So also making sure you're tying it back to the like business focus of it.
Totally.
Sweet. Okay. So let's go into some of the hypotheticals now. Okay, Corey. So imagine we hired you here at Tixr as our product manager. Okay. And let's say you want to implement a new type of feature for our product, or maybe even want to develop like a new product altogether because you've done some customer research, you know. So imagine you're doing either of those two scenarios for us, and you pitch the idea, and our executive team or our board committee members don't want to go with your idea. What would you do, and how would you try to change their opinion?
All right, so I'm going to restate the question first. I'm hearing that I am pitching a new product or a feature for Tixr, and the execs are opposed. I would talk to the execs first, I think, and understand what their rationale is for the opposition. Clearly, they have, by definition, execs have information that I don't have necessarily because I'm underneath them in the hierarchy. So I'd want to make sure that I have all the information that they do and determine whether this is an informational mismatch decision or a, something else, right? Whether we have the same information and they're making a different conclusion than I am, or if they actually have different information. So that's what I do first. If we do have the same information, then, and it's a purely like different conclusion thing, then I'd probably go to the customers and pit them against the execs and talk about data-driven statements such as 80% of customer persona B, says that they would pay Z dollars more, right? I mean, that would be the most powerful thing to say, right? Customer A would pay Z dollars more if we give them C, right? And if I have enough data, I would hope that Tixr is a place that respects data, and that the execs could be swayed with data, right? I don't think it would make sense to employ rational logic debate with an exec who had the same amount of information that I did and was drawing a different conclusion. I think it would make sense to back up my position with data. Yeah, and then I would, so let's say, so I started with the execs and then I said, show the customers. And then from there, I think I would tie it to the priorities for the company, right? So if there is a stated company-wide goal to get X% more revenue or Z% innovation in product, right? Then I can tie my offering to that, right? So I can either tell the execs it's a good idea and have them agree. I can either convince the execs with my customer, or I can say, look, if this is our stated goal as a company, here's how my project fits into that. And if you agree, then we're doing what the company's stated goals are, right? And if they disagree that it fits within the goals, that's a conversation that I can have with logical debate. And if they agree that it fits within the goals, then that's a conversation about whether the company's goals are the right goals, right? So start with the execs, make sure we're on the same page. If we're not, throw customer data at them that backs up my information. And then if that doesn't work, tie it into the stated goals of the company.
Okay. And you did mention that there were two reasons as to why they may not agree with you or approve your initial idea. The first would be if they have information that you do not have, and that's why there was a misalignment there. So what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, I would get the information. I'd ask them what information they're basing their decision off of. And if it's information that I didn't already know, then I would get that information myself and use it to inform my own opinion. If they wouldn't give it to me, I mean, that seems odd. I suppose there could be some confidential reason why an exec would do a thing, but I'd love to work in a place in which managers are empowered by their higher ups, and so I suppose that'd be an issue that we could talk about.
Okay. And let's say you present the customer feedback of the customer data as to why X, Y, and Z feature would be beneficial, and they're willing to pay X dollars more. But I assume that would have already been in your original business case, right? So assuming that it was already in there and they were like, yeah, we read it, Corey, but no, we're not giving you the funding for it. What would you
Yeah,
do?
I would push back. I would ask them, why they're not giving the funding. Um, we can spitball why that might be here. Is that helpful? Like they already have that funding earmarked for another project.
Yeah,
Should
there's,
I?
I guess there are multiple different reasons, and that could be one of them. And so, how would you try to fight for those budget dollars or resources for your product versus something else Tixer is working on?
Totally. So I'd have to be up to date on what else Tixer is working on. All of life is prioritizations, right? So I think it does come back to the company's stated goals. If the CEO has stated that the goal for this quarter is more revenue, or the goal for next quarter is like higher retention, right? Then maybe it makes sense for me to move my project based on what it is, to fit within that. I would respect that if it was near term. I do think there is generally an order of operations with those kinds of things, right? I mean, I put retention before revenue. I've been at a lot of companies where a short-term focus on revenue doesn't set you up for the long run, right? Rather, it's better to get your customers satisfied. So let's see. Rambling a little bit, I would make sure I'm on the same page with the execs on their prioritization matrix, right? So, because if they see that the customers would pay more and they're giving the budget elsewhere, then clearly there's a different set of priorities, and I'd want to get on the same page with that.
Okay, we got there at the end, and that was awesome, by the way. So this hypothetical situation is tricky, but this is more of like a soft skills question, right? It's not so much the technical piece, not so much about building X, Y, and Z thing. It's more about how would you actually manage different stakeholders, work cross-functionally, influence above, and fight for your product or your feature that you want, but also understanding when it is appropriate and when it's not. And you answered it correctly where you were talking about leveraging data first, so that doesn't work, then leaning on the company's priorities and then being able to respect that. But the part that I wanted to really get to, which I think was most impressive, was you were actually able to expand on, okay, what are different priorities that a company or startup would have? And you mentioned two of them, right? Retention versus growth, and then making sure you're able to strike that balance. But this is why your experience is so valuable, is you understand why retention, for example, may actually be a more important priority. And if that is the reason for why your feature may not be given the resources or the budget in the short term, you would be okay with that, right? Because you now have that business context, because you ran your own company and you now know what's important versus what's not important. And then the flip would be also true, right? If they told you that they wanted to focus more on growth, then you may actually say, well, actually, my product or my feature actually focuses more on retention. And from my experience running my own startups, I've learned that in X, Y, and Z periods like this, given the whatever data you have access to, I actually believe retention is probably should be our first priority this quarter, and here's why. Right. So I think this is a great question to highlight why your background is so unique from other people who maybe just come from like that standard corporate PM.
Totally. And that's best practice, right? Is kind of no matter what they ask you, give them the same story that you want them to receive, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this audience submitted question. Tell me about a time when there was a disagreement between the design team and the engineering team and how you were able to get them aligned on the same page.
Yeah. So this question reminds me of Invisible Technologies, where I was leading the growth team there, but still had my hands in a lot of product stuff, as mentioned earlier. Um, yeah. So I mean, that was a fun role in that I was leading growth team, so I was working with stakeholders from several different parts of the company. Design was definitely one of them. Engineer was one of them. Sales was one of them. I think product was kind of same as design, and then the actual execs, right? So I guess classic VP level stuff. Let's see, trying to remember a specific disagreement. Design and engineering. I would say so. We were building a human in the loop AI assistant, right? So there's kind of two big users. There's the client, and then there's we called them agents. So those were the human operators, the humans that were in the loop. And each of those had a different UI, right? And the clients, we wanted to exist wherever they were. That was generally text and email, because that was easiest for them to engage with. And then for the agents, they had their own workspace, right? And there was a lot of back and forth around what that should look like, how much to show them on their screen, how different the UI that we presented them with was from standard Chrome window or something, right? So it's been a while. I'm working off of like the flavor of the memory rather than the memory itself, right? But I want to say that I think engineering was anti creating an entire new portal and reinventing the wheel versus having these agents exist in Chrome or wherever else that they were already doing work. And it was less design and more execs, I think, that they wanted a specific invisible portal for these agents. So I'm kind of bending it a little bit, but that was a constant back and forth. And I think what we ended up doing, and given that I was kind of the advocate for the customer at that time, right, because I was doing sales and growth, was a middle ground of kind of Chrome extensions and widgets that would track time or gather data from a time tracker widgets that are already on the market, and put that all in a dashboard that the client could then see to look at how much time their invisible agents were using to complete their tasks, right? And I think that did illuminate some things for us and for the clients, where if you tell you've all used Upwork assistants, right? You tell them to do some basic thing and they spend 3 hours on it, right? You're going to have some questions. So we wanted to surface that to the clients so that they could have clarity. And then obviously we wanted to know so that we could have a conversation with that agent. So how I handled it was act as the voice of the customer, right? Try to not have my own opinion about it, and rather package what customers had told me and then reflect that into the internal discussions between those stakeholders, right? So how I handled it was be the customer advocate, which is always the right answer.
And then what was the end result or the outcome?
Yeah, the outcome was, it's all coming back now when you talk about it. I think we used off-the-shelf components such as time tracker, Chrome extensions and whatnot, and put that all into a dashboard. And so we didn't build widgets to do the things. We built a dashboard that took in data from off-the-shelf third-party widgets. And so at the time, that was the right thing. Pretty sure now they have their own dashboard internally UI thing, because they're a lot bigger. But at the time, that was the right trade-off rather than building a whole new thing.
But that's not what the exec team had wanted, correct?
Yeah, the exec team wanted their own thing as fast as possible. So this was a middle ground.
And so how did you get the exec team to be okay with the middle ground?
Trade-offs, prioritizations, kind of like the last question, right? Engineers are always a prime resource. And so I think there were some other resources at the time that we wanted to use them for. And the UI for the client was obviously more important than the UI for the agent, right? The agent is kind of our underling, so to speak. And so they'll be okay with whatever we give them. Whereas the client, if they have an unhappy experience, then that's going to reflect poorly on our sales. So I think at the time it was put the agent in whatever sandbox that makes sense, whereas keep the client as happy as possible. And that was the trade-off that we made.
Okay, cool. No, obviously this is like a practice session, and so for the next one, you would have already had this whole story flushed out, situation, task, action, result. So I think as long as you're able to practice it, rehearse it, makes sense. Making sure that you're able to discuss, because the point of this question is, again, more of that soft skills influencing, right? So just make sure the majority of your answer maybe like a minute, minute and a half, is actually focusing on how you were able to get, in this case, the executives to meet halfway, right? The engineers obviously wanted to do something in the middle from the beginning because they didn't want to build something from scratch. And so really here, your influencing skills is more on the executive end. And so just making sure how you're able to do that. Maybe you have to show some data, you have to bring in some customer whatever feedback surveys, you have to look at engineering timeline and deliverables, showing them how far back this would set other projects, right? Like making sure you have all that as a part of your story.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go through one more question. So imagine we hired you here at Tixer, and let's say you're starting in your job, right? What product changes or enhancements do you think you would initially propose to our product?
That's fair. Yeah, I've taken a look at your product, and I've actually bought a few tickets through Tixer in the real world, so that's fun to remember. Enhancements to your product. So I think the discovery, well, let's step away from me as a Tixer user and talk about how I as a PM would do this, right? So first would be understand who the customers are, right? I'm not the only customer at Tixer. There are, I think, event producers that are probably more important customers than the event attendees for Tixer because they're the ones hosting the events on the platform. So if I was enhancing the product, I'd want to make sure that I understand their needs very well. Maybe there are also promoters, right? So there's producers, event promoters, and then event attendees. Maybe there's vendors, right? These are all the kinds of stakeholders that might use Tixer. So I'd want to understand who those are. And then I would double down on one of them and their needs. So let's say for here, we would do an event producer, just because I think that is at the center of the star there, and understand their needs. So producers want to take tickets easy and fast. They want there to be minimum friction for the attendees to buy the tickets. They want the event site, Tixer in this case, to take a small cut. So we need to make sure we have market standard cuts there, not much larger or smaller. They want to know that maybe there's good promotion opportunities on the platform, right? Because they're doing their own promotion, but if they can get some extra ticket sales from the platform, then that's ideal. So those are some of the needs that they have. I would say let's just choose promotion as the choice here, because I think looking at the Tixer website, it is a little bit all over the place. There's been several times when I, as a user, have looked at it and been like, oh, that looks like a cool event, and then it's across the country or something, right? So it's nice and shiny to have that on the homepage, but if we are trying to get an event attendee to purchase on the platform and discover more events, thereby helping the event producer, thereby making the event producer host more on Tixer, then we'd want to have a better front page, maybe a personalized front page, or a geographic specific front page, which would support all those top line things that I just mentioned. Then I would think about the trade-offs from doing that. I think you see this often with marketplaces where you can either have relevant things or you can have good looking things. You get like random small town dad's barbecue kind of events maybe, and that's next to you, but it's not as exciting as the global DJ rave that's across the country, right? I'm looking at Tixer, I can definitely see both of those are things that exist on the platform, right? So how would I evaluate that trade-off? With data is the right answer, obviously, right? So could do some A/B tests on how many tickets a attendee books after having already booked a ticket, right? I think that confirmation page right after you've booked a ticket to event A is probably the juiciest place, even juicier than the Tixer homepage, because I don't think that Tixer attendees are very loyal to Tixer, right? They're just buying wherever the event is hosted, which happens to be on Tixer. So I would A/B test what events are recommended to a user that purchases a ticket on Tixer and is given that page. And I think thinking through it right now, the continuum is between relevant and exciting as the two things, and one could bring that back and forth. There's also potentially a remote option, right? If Tixer does remote events, that can kind of cut the middle of those two extremes, right? It can be exciting and relevant because you can attend no matter where it is. So yeah, I would A/B test that post-purchase page between those two elements and see which gets more purchases, which would enhance the Tixer product, both for the attendee and for the event producer, which is the stakeholder that I'm targeting there based off of the classic two-sided marketplace where you got to start with supply. Make the producers happy and the attendees will come.
What are the potential engineering challenges we may run into when trying to design a feature like this?
Yeah, so we need to know about the user, the attendee, and we need to know where they are, and we need to know what they've purchased in the past. I think we would know the latter pretty easily, right? Because that's kind of the only thing you do as a user on Tixer. We might not know their geography. We can surmise it. We'd have to have some kind of map. This is something that I dealt with at Reciprocity, as a matter of fact. So you could geographically tag your asks and offers, because sometimes that was relevant to the ask, right? And so we had to input a whole map into the server that knew that San Francisco is closer to Los Angeles than it is to Miami, right? That kind of thing. So that would be a challenge if we were using geography to determine relevance of these things. Let's see, other challenges. We'd have to sort each event based off of certain criteria. Like looking at the Tixer webpage, you have geography and sort of industry already, right? Whether it's a sporting event or a music venue or a comedy or something. I think we want to go a little bit deeper than that, right? It makes sense that someone who buys a comedy event would maybe buy another comedy event, but comedy is very different, right? There's shock jocks, and then there's like the touchy-feely, bring home to your parents comedians. So I don't know if Tixer actually can distinguish between those or just treats them both as comedy. But if we're going to be suggesting events with this level of granularity, then we'd want to ensure that we do distinguish between those kinds of subgenres of other verticals, so to speak.
Okay, cool. I think every part of the answer was correct. You even were proactive about telling me about how you would test it, measure success, certain metrics. You also broke it down into the different customers, and then you had different personas as to what you would be aiming for and trying to solve, which was great. I think you did a really good job, honestly, for covering all of the comprehensive aspects of it, from building the feature from scratch all the way through test on the fly. So it was really good. The only thing that maybe we could do would just be organizing the thoughts a little bit more, giving me like a little bit of a preview, kind of like the outline format, right? Like, well, first I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. Just give me that quick breakdown. Show me that you have that strategic mindset. You're able to take a step back for a second, give me the bigger picture view, and then you can dive in and do what you did, right? This also should allow your responses to be a little bit more concise, because you're not building it so much on the fly as you were doing. But everything you mentioned was correct. So overall, super good answer. If anything, just like a little bit of organization and structure at the front end, but it was great.
Totally. Yeah, my dad used to say, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've told them. And I definitely felt myself rambling a little bit there. So that's good to have the bookends.
Yeah. Your dad clearly knows what he's doing. So perfect. Okay, Albert, that's all that I had. And again, if anyone wants additional interviewing tips and tricks, please check out either my YouTube channel or Albert's List YouTube channel. Put that in the chat right now. Thanks, Corey. And everyone, please give Corey a huge round of applause.
All right. Well, thank you, Corey. And also thank you, Corey, for conducting this mock interview. This concludes our event for tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks for actually another product manager interview. So come back and tune in then, and we'll see you again soon. Between now and then, have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and best of luck in all your career endeavors and between all that turkey. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.